Home? I have no home. Haunted. Despised. Living like an animal. The jungle is my home. I will show the world that I can be its master. I will perfect my own race of people. A race of atomic supermen, which will conquer the world!
Hey folks, it's me, RiggerM71, and welcome to another movie review. This one features one of my favorite films from one of the most curious figures in exploitation and low-budget cinema. That's right, it's Bride of the Monster by none other than Edward Davis Wood Jr., or just Ed Wood if you prefer. I'm hoping this will be the first in a series of reviews featuring Wood's films, but we'll just have to see how things go. To start things off, some background of the man himself is probably in order. Edward Wood Jr. was born in 1924 to Edward Sr. and Lillian Wood in Poughkeepsie, New York. He spent a great deal of his childhood reading comics and pulp magazines, but his favorite pastime was frequenting the local movie theater. He quickly became obsessed with westerns, science fiction serials, and horror films. On his 12th birthday, he ended up with his own 16mm film camera, a Kodak Cinespecial, which, for a kid growing up in the 1930s, was quite the rare prize. The camera pictured here is a somewhat later model than the one Ed used, but you get the idea. He eventually grew to adulthood, as children tend to do, and after spending some time in the military during the war, decided he should move to Hollywood and pursue his dream of becoming a serious filmmaker. After spending several years working in the film and television industry, as well as directing a few of his own less-than successful projects, he set his sights on writing and producing his very own horror film. Enlisting the talent of his new friend Bela Lugosi, this is the project that eventually became Bride of the Monster. Released in 1955, the working title and initial premiere went under the name Bride of the Atom, but was later changed. It was produced through a deal with Samuel Z. Arkoff, who apparently ended up with a significantly higher percentage of the profits. This would unfortunately become a recurring turn of events in Wood's career. For whatever reason, Ed never seemed very good at getting the better end of the stick. It's been suggested that Arkoff used a good portion of his share to form American International Pictures, which of course went on to become legendary for their horror and science fiction releases. One of the most interesting elements to Wood's films is their unusual cast of characters. What's even more interesting than that are the unusual actors he's chosen to portray those characters, and Bride of the Monster is no exception. The most obvious place to start is with Dracula himself, Bela Lugosi. He portrays the character of Dr. Erich Vornoff, a scientist banished from his homeland and currently living in a secluded house at the center of a marsh. Wood met Lugosi shortly after moving to Hollywood. Lugosi wasn't working much anymore and living in relative poverty. Ed took it upon himself to befriend the man and help him out in whatever capacity he could, which included casting him in his own projects. Lugosi, already pretty old by this point, was limited in terms of what he could do on screen, but still manages to pull off a reasonable performance. Bride of the Monster would become his last speaking role in a film. Another actor that became a familiar face in several of Wood's films was Tory Johansen, known to most as simply Tor Johnson. Originally from Sweden, Tor worked as a professional wrestler and gradually worked his way into acting. His imposing form and shaved head came in handy when casting directors needed someone to portray a monster, giant, or strongman. Wood picked up on this idea and cast him in Bride of the Monster as Lobo, Dr. Vornoff's mute assistant and bodyguard. Actress Loretta King was cast as Janet Lawton, a newspaper reporter determined to get a story about the strange occurrences going on around the marsh. An interesting fact about King was that she apparently avoided drinking fluids of any kind, either claiming that she was allergic or that they put on weight. In Rudolph Gray's biography of Ed Wood, titled Nightmare of Ecstasy, Wood stated that her skin was always a pale white because of dehydration. Apparently even Lugosi at one point told her that she was going to end up looking like the Mummy. Officer Dick Craig, which I suppose is technically the hero of the film, was played by Tony McCoy. If that name doesn't sound familiar, it's because he wasn't really an actor, but rather the son of Donald E. McCoy, the principal investor in the film's production. Imagine that. Other notable characters include Captain Robbins of the local police department, portrayed by Harvey B. Dunn, and Officer Kelton, played by Paul Marco. Marco would appear multiple times as Kelton the cop in several of Ed's films. I won't go into very much detail regarding the story, but let's just say it involves rumors about a monster, a mad scientist, a missing news reporter, and a rather large rubber octopus. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about the octopus. According to interviews contained in the book Nightmare of Ecstasy, the history of the aforementioned cephalopod goes back to Republic Pictures. It was apparently used in Wake of the Red Witch, released in 1948. After that, it was stowed away in the studio's rafters, where it sat for years until Wood and his associates decided it should be liberated and used in their new movie. In other words, they stole it from Republic Pictures. Although walking out of the studio with a 150-pound rubber octopus is quite an impressive accomplishment, it seems they forgot to look for the motor or whatever device was used to flail the tentacles around. As a result, any scene that required an actor to fight with the creature involved tossing the tentacles around by hand. The result is either very funny, very sad, or some combination. To this day, I still haven't decided. In addition to that, the film contains a great deal of what can only be called strange dialogue. I think the reason for this can be traced back to how Ed Wood turned out the scripts for his movies. He came up with ideas so quickly that I don't think he gave a second thought to the vast majority of what people were saying. So when it finally makes its way into the film, it often sounds a little weird.
Monster.
I thought so.
There are no such thing as monsters. This is the 20th century.
Don't count on it.
However, these are the types of things that make Ed Wood movies so enjoyable to his fans. Like most of his films, I enjoy this movie more because of its flaws rather than in spite of them. The odd combinations of dialogue and visuals set his films apart from similar movies of the period, and is one of the main reasons people are still watching them. They're also just kind of funny. The fact that he continued making these movies, despite ever achieving any real success during his lifetime, is a testament to the man's intense passion for writing and making films. There's probably a lesson in there for all of us, but at the risk of sounding like a motivational speaker, I'll leave it open to your interpretation, and bring this review to a close. As always, if you found this video informative or entertaining, you can certainly hit the like button or subscribe to the channel. You're also welcome to leave a comment below if you feel compelled to do so. That being said, please take care, and of course, have fun.
Don't count on it.